the stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we're operating without a PA system, without video, so we're solely available to the public through Teams conference. For those that are connected through the phone system, if you are one of the items, and when it's time for you to address the commission, if you would please identify yourself, and we will proceed with the adoption of the agenda. Commissioners, have you had a chance to review the agenda, and do you have any modifications or additions?
I have reviewed it. I have no additions.
I have no additions also.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Now, the microphones don't work at our station either, so we're totally depending upon our projection. And the same when you address the commission from the podium, the microphone isn't working, so you will have to, so we can hear. Next item on the agenda is appointments. We have no appointments at this time. So next item then is item 3, consent agenda. We had no modifications during the adoption of the agenda, so at this time I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is item 4, public hearing. I will begin with open the public hearing for 201 East Main Street. David, would you like to present?
Mayor, this is a property that several months ago it was discovered that the roof had collapsed in multiple places. We initially had some issues with making contact with the owner, but with the city attorney's help, we have made those contacts. We've had no replies. I've also tried calling, leaving messages, text messages with no replies from the owner. Therefore, I would ask that the commission consider condemning this property. Dangerous and unsafe.
Okay. Is there anyone here to represent the owner of the property? Is there anyone of the public that would like to address the commission concerning the property? And I will close the public hearing and open for commissioner discussion. Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
Commissioner Ususi?
I have none.
There's no questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion. I move to adopt a resolution condemning 201 East Main as dangerous and unsafe.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I will open a public hearing for 321 South 19th Street. David?
Mayor, this house has recently been sold and a timeline and work has begun on this house. Therefore, I would ask the commission to adjourn this until February 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m.
Is there anyone present to represent the owner of the property? Are there any, one in the public that wants to address the commission concerning the property? If not, then I will close the public hearing and open for Commission discussion. Commissioner Ususi, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I'm glad to hear that, the property is apparently gonna be rehabbed. That's a plus.
Okay, Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
Okay, with no further questions, and I will call for a motion.
I move to adjourn the public hearing until February 25th, 2021 at 5:30 PM for 321 South 19th Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Second.
I will open the public hearing for 414 South Wall. David?
Mayor, this is a house that, several months ago, the property owner contacted us, and they were gonna do a plan, submit a timeline for repairs of the house and work with the city. Since that time, we have received no contact from them, and, Aaron has continued to have issues with code enforcement, cars parked in the yard, different things like that. They were notified of this hearing and our intentions to condemn the structure as dangerous and unsafe, and I have not received any contact as of now, as of today.
Is there a representative of the owner present tonight who would like to address the commission? Is there anyone in the public that has a concern regarding the property and would like to address the commission? If not, then I will close the public hearing. Commissioner Hayes, do you have any questions?
I do. I drove by this property today. It looks like some, work has been done to close the opening on the side of the building, and there is the rubbish has been to some degree reduced, and there is a van, like a moving van perhaps, parked there. It seems like there's activity going on. What do we know about, that partial construction that's going on there? Do we know anything about that?
They were informed that in order to do any construction, they needed to get a building permit and submit us a plan. They wanted to put a garage in there, which that structure will not support a garage. Then he was talking about setting it up for an accessory use, which was gonna require us in the zoning looking at it because of who owns, it was two separate lots. And then there are some legal issues involving the police department. So there's a lot of activity going on with this structure, but however, the person that spoke to us 2 months on behalf of the owner that was gonna make all this happen has left town. And the owner will not speak to us.
Thank you, David.
Yes.
Commissioner Ususi?
I have no questions.
David, the owner, isn't this property, I think earlier you described that it was, rent to sell or something, so when we talk about owner, are we talking about the legal owner or the person that was trying to buy it?
They've supposedly made a deal, and they have one of those rent-to-own deals, but she has not filed it with the county. She came up and provided me and Aaron with a notarized copy, along with other information which we had to turn over to the police department, which we did. But to our knowledge, it has never been filed with the county, so I am not for sure what the status is.
So, when we're dealing with this,
I notified both of them.
okay,
She's aware and he's aware. She says, I have a notarized copy, maybe Jeff can answer the question. But to our knowledge, she hasn't filed it with the county. So Jeff, I do not, both of them have been notified of the hearing and what's going on.
What's the question?
They have, this is one of those kind of like rent-to-own contracts between the two of them.
Rent-to-own is not a contract for sale, so it won't be reported to the county. It's just around what the
Yeah.
county's the one that did all the damage, I think.
by notifying both, the legal owner is still the person that's recorded on the deed. So if we're notifying both like David has done, then we're covered. We can't come back.
Yeah, you see.
Yeah. That was, I want to make sure that
Yeah.
it sounded
Yeah.
like we were covered, but it's one of those, another one of those interesting,
It's very, and there's just a lot of things that come.
yeah, okay. Well then, I have no further questions, so if there are none from the commission, then I will call for a motion.
I make a motion, I move, to adopt a resolution condemning 414 South Walled Avenue as dangerous and unsafe.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I'll open the public hearing for 416 South 18th Street.
Mayor, if you remember several months ago, the party came to the commission and asked for some time and that he was gonna remove this property on his own, so we adjourned the meeting. We have never been contacted and a demo permit has not been applied for. So this time, and we've re-notified, I do not know if they're here tonight or what the circumstances, we've been unable to contact them. We did notify him of the hearing tonight, so at this time, we would recommend condemning as dangerous and unsafe.
Is there a representative of the owner present tonight? Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the commission concerning the property? Not, then I will close the public hearing and open for commission discussion. Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
Commissioner Ususi?
I have none.
With no further questions, and I will call for a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution condemning 416 South 18th as dangerous and unsafe.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll open a public hearing for 800 East Edison. David?
Mayor, this is a very nice family, that wants to rehab this house, where they grew up. The family is kind of scattered throughout the state, throughout the United States, and they want to get together this spring and work on this, but due to COVID, their age, they just do not want to be traveling right at the moment, and they've asked for time. She responds immediately anytime I call her, I email her. I'm asking the commission to give them till May to get this worked out, so that the family can rehab this house. They want to rehab it and make it a place where when they come to visit Independence, family members can stay there, and it's going to be the home they were raised in. So that's a lot of fond memories for the family.
Okay.
I would have to go back and check. I think they take care of it. There is some family here. I will check, but if we mow it, I guarantee she will make sure we mow it.
Okay. Is there a representative of the property owner present tonight? Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the commission regarding the property? If not, then I will close the hearing and open for commission discussion. Commissioner Ususi?
I'm familiar with the family and they have good intentions. They'll follow through. I really don't have any, I see they do have looks like a newer meter loop put up, that looks like it meets, Evergy specifications, so that's one step in the right direction.
Okay. Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
Okay. If we have no further discussion, I will call for a motion.
I make a motion. I move to adjourn the public hearing for 800 East Edison Street until May 27th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'll open a public hearing for 801 East Birch Street. David?
Mayor, this is a property that has sold, and, the new landlord is in the process of fixing it. She has submitted a timeline, and she is doing some work. She really anticipates in the next 30 days they'll be able to finish up. Therefore, I'd ask the, commission to adjourn this public hearing till February 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m.
Okay, Commissioner Ususi, do you have any, oh, wait, is there anyone, to represent the owner present? Property owner or someone from the public address the commission? I'll close the public hearing now, Commissioner Ususi.
Yeah, David, I have a question for you. This, name, Alicia, have we dealt with this person before on other property within the city?
We have dealt with the new landlord, and
Okay.
at times we've had a few issues, but they've been able to work them out, and she, seems to be working on this property.
Okay. On the previous properties, has she followed through and completed, work on those that had come before the commission? Do you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've had a few struggles here and there that we've worked through and taken some time. Some of it has just been financial and,
Sure.
being able to get the money to fix what she needs, but, she does follow through.
Okay, good. I recognized the name, and I was just curious what her track record was. Thank you, David.
Commissioner Hayes?
I have not.
If there's no further questions concerning the property, then I will call for a motion.
I move to adjourn the public hearing for 801 East Birch Street until February 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'll open a public hearing, for 1020 West Myrtle. David?
Mayor, this is the house that is owned by the gentleman from Lawrence that has been in front of the commission before. He has a deal with a lady out of Wichita that has begun rehab. If you drove by, you can see on the front porch where she's done some demo inside. A roofing contractor has been, in the process of a new roof in the next couple of weeks. So she is making progress and, towards restoring this and eventually moving into the structure. Therefore, I'd ask the commission to adjourn this public hearing to February 25th, 2021.
Is the owner present or their representative? Anyone from the public would like to address the commission regarding the property? Not, then I will close the public hearing and open for commission discussion. Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
Commissioner Ususi?
I have none.
If there's no further discussion, then I will call for a motion.
I make a motion. I move to adjourn the public hearing for 1020 West Myrtle Street until February 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. I'll open the public hearing for, 2009 and a half North 10. David?
Mayor, this structure was involved in a fire. The owner of it has intention to rehab the house, but due to COVID, they live in Oklahoma City and other circumstances, they are just now getting a contractor, which they hope to have, that all worked out and start rehabbing it within the next 30 days. So she has asked for to adjourn until February 25th, 2021. I believe they're sincere and they're attempting to get it taken care of. So I would be okay with adjourning till February 25th, 2021.
Is there a representative of the owner present? Anyone in the public want to address the commission regarding the property? Not, then I will close the public hearing and open for commission discussion. Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
Commissioner Ususi?
I have none.
If there's no further questions, then I will call for a motion.
I move to adjourn the public hearing for 2009 North Penn Avenue until February 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5, items for commission action. Item A, consider bids received for demolition of the following condemned properties. 1, 1217 North 9th Street. 2, 409 South 17th Street. 3, 509 North 14th Street. 4, 708 South 16th Street. 5, 1101 West Main Street. 6, 1105 West Main Street. Hey, David?
Mayor, we went out for bids for 6 structures and received the bids, and, I was then contacted by the lady from the Baptist Church on South 17th. She had had a death in her family, and she notified me then that they have contracted with G&G Dozer to remove 1101 and 1105 West Main. Therefore, we removed those houses from our consideration, and the low bid for the rest of the houses is JRB at $17,900, and we are recommending awarding the bids to him for that amount of money.
They were the low bidder on the last group of houses that we
Yes, yes,
had removed too, weren't they? Okay. Completed on schedule and,
yes. He's doing a good job.
Commissioner Hayes, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Commissioner Ususi?
I do not.
Okay, if there are no questions, then I will call for a motion.
I make a motion, I move to award demolition contract for 4 previously condemned structures, in the amount of $17,900 to JRB Industries Incorporated. Do I need to list the addresses of those 4? Okay. The 4 addresses are 1217 North 9th Street, 409 South 17th Street, 509 North 14th Street, and 708 South 16th Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, consider revised master plan for Central Park and North Park Boulevard Sports Complex. Kelly, do we have a representative from the Park Board present tonight, or?
Doug Pickard on the phone, and I'm going to share my screen.
And is anyone present from the Rec Commission?
Yes, Christy Mavers and Brett Julian are on the phone. You might check and ask if they have anyone else on the phone.
Brent, or?
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
want to comment to the commission concerning the plan before, or would you rather have Doug go through and explain the plan and then offer comment?
Yeah, we're good with Doug taking it over. We did have our board meeting yesterday, and my city rec board did agree that we would be glad and happy to move forward with it as with whatever you guys decide. So.
Okay. Thanks, Brent. Doug, do you want to go ahead and present the proposed plan?
Yes, I certainly can. I trust you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I know you've had this, so I'll try not to get too detailed. I focus a little bit more on sort of the reasonings behind some elements of the plan and not so much describing the plan to you. So, Kelly, I'm not seeing the plan on my screen. Is that coming up or?
Okay, I show it on mine.
Oh, interesting. Well, I can still walk through it. That's no problem. So, what I was planning to do was start from the west side and just sort of walk through west to east as opposed to kind of following the legend in the order of that. I thought it might be a little more logical to do that and kind of walk through the rationale for some of the things that are shown. So at the far west, item O is the existing skate park, which is not impacted directly by any of the planning here. It remains as is. And then to the east of that is the first kind of major parking addition, which is in support of then adjacent to the east of that, the pad developed for soccer fields. Basically, that somewhat irregular shape is just taking advantage of what the ground provides. And within that larger area are the 5 different field sizes that the Rec Commission provided as field sizes that they're using or wish to use in this space. Those are maximum sizes. It's my understanding that they could be a little bit smaller, and there is an option to rearrange some of those spaces to move wear areas around within that larger pad. So the basic concept here is that is one large pad that has the smaller fields striped within it so that the fields aren't stuck in one spot and you always have those really worn out areas in front of the goals. So, and previously I'd shown them some of the adjustments. Obviously there's not a tremendous amount of movement that can take place there, but they can be shifted to help improve and kind of maintain the quality of the turf. Just to the northwest of that is item B, that's sort of the reddish rectangle, which is proposed new concessions restroom building. It's just shown essentially the same size as the existing concessions restroom building down off North Park Boulevard for the ball fields. Some adjacent or some connecting walks are shown there as well. And I'll circle back to the big trail system that's surrounding all that here in just a few moments. So then moving farther to the east, toward North Park Boulevard, there's a connecting walk proposed that gets us to another significant parking addition improvement. And that ties into a reconfigured ball field configuration in that area. Just very kind of briefly, I looked at a lot of different configurations of ball fields, including leaving them where they were, and trying to find ways to improve the ability to get parking off street and increase the parking, and also make that parking available to the soccer pad, if you will, because the parking stalls shown to the west of the soccer pad really are not really sufficient. Potentially, it depends on how many fields are striped and how many games are going, but it really is a little bit short from a desirable amount of parking just for those soccer fields. So being able to bring this new parking to the east so that it's a reasonable service distance to the soccer fields is a pretty significant benefit. On the ball fields themselves, one of the issues that we discussed very early was that with the flooding that has taken place there, that had obviously trouble with the electrical system and the lighting. And one of the ideas or hopes was to be able to figure out how to get some of that infrastructure higher. And I'm going to pause myself on that because I should have mentioned on the soccer complex and in the new concessions restroom. That new concessions restroom is at the highest point in this entire property and is out of the designated floodplain. The soccer field complex is also quite high. It may potentially have some floodwaters over it at some point, but it would be very minimal because it is some of the highest property that's within this park boundary. So back to the ball fields then, it's not significantly higher, but as you go to the north in that existing ball field area, the grade does rise in the neighborhood of 6, 7 feet, 8 feet up to the far north edge. So by moving all those fields up there, which does some other positive things, which I'll touch on, it does allow us to raise the elevation of those fields higher than they are now, in almost all cases, significantly in the case of a couple of those fields. So So that's a very huge benefit. The other element of this was understanding that the lighting really needs to be replaced and is intended to be replaced. And that is a significant cost in rehabbing these fields. And so it also made sense, I think, as we move through this in discussion, to look at really where's the best long-term location for these fields, so we don't be putting lighting on in places where it kind of locks us in for a good long time. Again, not in an ideal location. So related to that, by putting these fields in a kind of more traditional fourplex arrangement, it allows all of the service areas, the concessions areas, all those things to be very close to the existing concessions restroom, which is item H, and the existing shelter, item I, and also leaves us some space to look at the idea of adding a play area for the younger kids or any children that aren't participating in the game at the time, that have something to do in a safe zone within that fourplex. So really accomplished several benefits and improvements in terms of just being able to keep an eye on children running back and forth to concessions and restroom, to the fields, the stands, sort of brings all that together. And again, it does allow us to put all of these fields in a little bit higher elevation than they currently are. So that's the kind of the long and short of that. There's a good block of parking off street with this configuration. And all this is done in consideration for making sure that there are good places and good access for ADA parking stalls. I did not show those on the master plan, but they all are considered and evaluated in how this lays out and where the sidewalks connect and those sorts of things. So that should all work very, very well. Then to the south of that is item L, was proposed to be 2 new and expanded basketball courts. And adjacent to that, to the west, item K, would be proposed batting cages. And going to the south, you see some proposed additional parking along Sycamore Street to help support the proposed kind of multi-use field / flag football fields that would be graded out in that property between Sycamore and Cottonwood. Well, I'll point out that Sycamore Street obviously is a one-way street to the east. This plan is proposing that segment of the street that's closest to North Park Boulevard be allowed to be a two-way street, to be able to access this parking without having to take all of the cars and force them to come down Sycamore Street from the west. Obviously, there would need to be a pinch point in that and some signage to reinforce that you can't keep going west, but and also a turnaround space bubble that's shown there. It seems a much safer and sort of logical way to access some additional parking and not force people to go through the residential neighborhood any more than they have to access that parking. And then jumping on the other side of North Park Boulevard to the east, not a big change in terms of what it looks like in the plan view, but this is a slightly new location for the Sinclair Field. It's a bit north and a little bit west to allow that field to be expanded to 300 feet. And it also allows additional parking and more formalized parking to be worked into the space to the south of that field. Significantly more parking than can happen right there right now. And I did try to take in consideration in that particular area, especially the locations of the existing trees that do provide such nice shade down there. So the plan is considerate of where those very significant trees are in that particular location. And hopefully that works pretty well. I should point out on the ball fields, these are all proposing in the cost estimate that I'll touch on in a minute, that they would all have, well, I shouldn't say all. The Sinclair Field, the Bicentennial Field, and Clark James Field would have new score boxes with storage underneath those, and obviously with new locations for the fields, there would be new fencing and new dugouts. As I mentioned, obviously the new lighting to go with that. So that's sort of the big structure and kind of the why and the wherefore. Obviously, looping around all this is that proposed orange line that represents a walking trail that would be a mile long. That exterior loop would be a mile long, so it's a tremendous distance and availability to have that. And plus, I like to create smaller loops where possible, so there is that loop connection between the soccer and the ball field area that would allow a smaller loop for somebody that didn't wish to walk that far. So that is sort of the overview of the plan. I'll pause there before I touch on sort of the cost structure. Any questions about the plan, the whys, and any of that?
Doug, on the walking trail, I think it was brought up by the Rec Commission desiring that that could be wide enough that instead of having a 5K or a run on public streets, that could be utilized also. Is that how we ended up with the design?
Yes. The estimate is that trail would be an 8-foot wide trail at a minimum, yes. So it should be very comfortable for that purpose.
Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding the plan? Commissioner Hayes?
It's quite elaborate, and it's just kind of exciting to think about all of the possibilities here. One of the things that comes to mind is that anytime we have looked at one of these big projects like this, we have tried to phase it so that it could be done incrementally, maybe over a longer time frame. Certain of these certain portions of this, as they are enumerated on this master plan probable cost spreadsheet, are broken out individually, but they really can't be done individually because they are overlapping multiple fields. Has there been any effort to look at phasing this? Well, in terms of the overall project, it could be phased. I think maybe what you're referring to are the ball fields, the fourplex. The fourplex would be something that would have to be done at once, but the soccer complex and the parking associated with that, and even the changes to Sinclair Field on the east side could clearly be phased out separately if that was the intent. So yes, the ball fields, the fourplex of the ball fields would be something that would need to be done essentially as one project. Thank you.
Commissioner Ususi, do you have any questions for Doug concerning the plan right now?
No, I like the layout of the plan, Doug. It's quite ambitious. And I like the fact that what Dean had asked, that it could be phased in as far as the renovations. And I like the fact that the elevation is going to change on the ball fields, so that will help protect them due to the flooding issues that occur, especially the further you go south on Park Boulevard. So that's a plus. So yeah, I like what I see. Now, just how are we going to cover the cost?
All right.
Brent or Christie, do you want to make comment regarding the plan at this point, or are you ready to proceed with discussion of the cost breakdown?
This is Brent again. No, we'd be ready to move on. We love the plan. We absolutely feel like he hit a home run with it as far as everything we would want. Obviously, it is a very bold plan. And as far as phasing, we've kind of discussed that as well. And, currently we're playing soccer on our baseball, softball fields as it is. So, we feel like as long as the soccer complex is built first, and then we could, give a pretty good, almost a year window there where we could be off the ball fields for that project. So we definitely think it's doable in phases as well. And like I said, we're very pleased with how it's going so far. So yeah, we're ready to move on to talking about how we could afford it all, I guess.
Okay, first, I think Doug, you'll go through the cost estimate. I think then we'll discuss that further here in a little bit. Okay. Doug, do you want to go through?
Yeah, we'll go through the cost. But before I do that, I really need to correct myself, and I apologize very much for this. But the two north fields, D and F, the Clark James field and the JC field, I was actually wrong. You could build those two fields because those essentially only impact those two fields, the same two fields. You could potentially do D and F and leave the small field alone and the bicentennial field alone, and then come back and build those. Now, there would be some cost losses with that for sure. But if that has to happen, I kind of misspoke, and I apologize. It would be possible to actually do that in two phases if it really just had to be done. So, okay. I'll move on with the cost, and since I'm not seeing it on my screen, I'm going to pull that up on my screen so I make sure I'm looking at it. Okay, so there's obviously a lot of detail here. I will get into any detail that you want me to get into, but I'm not going to dive into that unless it really is kind of needed. So at the top, I started with the new soccer complex, the soccer fields. Obviously, there's tree removal demo. I did anticipate that there may need to be, because of some of the old construction materials that are down there in places, that potentially there would need to be some soil fill and maybe some topsoil brought in. So I went ahead and anticipated that. Hopefully maybe that isn't the case, but I thought it was relative to include that. And mostly it's grading and seeding at that point. So you can see the kind of the lump sum for the soccer pad, if you will, is a little over $200,000. The soccer concessions and restroom building at that 30 by 40 size, using some typical costs on projects that have been involved with that have been bid for CMU block buildings that have these kind of amenities inside of those. Obviously, it hasn't been designed. There's a lot of discussions about what things are happening inside and what sort of equipment you want that would impact that. But I feel, based on my experience with other projects of similar nature, that's in a pretty reasonable ballpark. Put some money in there for some additional site work around that structure, so at $325. And the parking and drives is actually the biggest cost for getting those drives and the stalls to support all of that. So it's just one of those weird deals, because soccer fields themselves aren't terribly expensive, but the support facilities for those are significantly more. So the development cost for that whole package is about $962,000, just a little short of $1 million for that. Then getting into the ball fields, again, I won't get into every detail for each and every one of these, but basically I've taken each field independently and showed the demolition, the grading, the turfing, the fencing, new dugouts, the score box where that applies, new scoreboards, the lighting that we talked about, and then obviously there's drainage that's impacted by these. So those are the basic elements that are included in all of these, except some of the fields obviously don't have a score box associated with them. But the Sinclair field, basically rebuilding it to the north to be able to expand it as well, is about $500,000. A lot of that, again, is in the lighting. That is an expensive element of it, but it is something that I know has been seriously discussed and planned. So Clark James Field, 200-foot fence, about 406 is where the Bicentennial Field, 175-foot fence, about $360,000. The JC Field, 150-foot, $227,000, and the Hugo field, about $165,000. So that's, that's the basic cost if each field is done. Now, I will say that, I'm looking at this, not knowing how the phasing would go, kind of taking each field on its own. I do believe that if a package of multiple of these fields or all the fields would be done at one time, there would be some economy of scale and some savings in that, as you would typically expect on a project like this. So it also would get much more interest from bidding if there's more to that. And down below that, I segmented out the ball field parking and the drives, the costs associated with those, not including the soccer parking, which I captured up above, but the Sinclair field parking, those first two line items, closing in on $300,000, and the fourplex parking, 131 stalls there, about $460,000, and then to provide some off-street parking off of Sycamore Street, got that shown at about $75,000. So that's a little bit $800,000 for an additional parking. And then I just for simplicity's sake, I have obviously structure underneath all this on the my cost estimating, but the trail system, 8-foot wide asphalt trail for the links that are shown on the plan, got that estimated at $420,000. Batting cages about $45,000. There's 2 basketball courts, $110,000 for both, and the multi-use sports field, essentially a grading project, but I did also include some fencing along North Park Boulevard, and the number that's in there, figure that at about $100,000. And so the construction subtotal for $4,100,000, and then I did show just as a total project cost, assuming that it would be kind of done through that formal process, to have final design construction documents prepared, and the construction administration for a project of this scale adds, a little over $400,000. So right now, the estimate sits at about $4.5 million, roughly. And I know that, I should say right up front, I know that there has been very commonly and very, very commendably, frequently things that are done in a less formal way in terms of hiring contractors through the city and through, support from the community. I can't anticipate that. So this is essentially my look at it, assuming that it would be pretty much a formal bid contracted project from start to finish, understanding that that's not likely to be the case in an entirety. So that would obviously be in your benefit in terms of starting to bring the cost south. So any questions about any of that?
Well, thank you. I understand that these are estimates and they have not yet met with the real world consequences of things like a COVID pandemic or other availability of resources. So these are just estimates, but I really appreciate the concept drawing. I think it is comprehensive and inclusive, and I appreciate the work.
Well, thank you much.
I do have one question, and I know these costs, when you take everything in consideration, will continue to be hopefully refined. I do have a question on the CMU block building, the 30 by 40, the soccer concession and restroom. That's 1,200 square feet, and you've got that at a cost of $300,000, which would equate to $250 a square foot. Would that be correct?
That is basically correct, yes. And I know that sounds high, but I can just tell you from public bidding on projects like this, because of the plumbing and the things that go with that is just simply not uncommon. I know how high that sounds, but I do think that it's real world, constructed bid reality. All
right, thank you. I just wanted your opinion on that. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think what we're talking about tonight is discussion of the plan and to see if it's acceptance to move forward on it. The next phase would be to look at the cost. I know, City Manager Assur's got some ideas that she's been thinking about ways to get a lot of people involved, support, that she was involved with the skate park. So by no means by us approving the plan are we approving a project to proceed, but just having a confirmed plan to work from, to look into it further on costs and funding sources. So, Kelly, do you want to say anything about the plan?
I think the committee that was, consisted of the members of the rec commission, the mayor, city staff worked with Doug, and I'm very happy with what they came up with. We anticipate that funding, we would be looking at, grant resources. There's certain grants for trails and things we could potentially apply for, in addition to partnering with other entities. The rec commission, potentially, some other, entities like we did with the skate park, and we also got donations for that, and like we put the fountain, something like that, and do it in kind of phases to, get this accomplished. This is a master plan, so this, would give us a direction. Also, make sure if you're gonna make improvements to something, that it's in the right place for future planning. And so we thought it was very important to have this document.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Brent, would you have any further comments regarding the plan?
No, once again, we're in total agreement with Kelly and everything that's going on so far, so.
Okay, Christy, do you have any comments?
I don't. I appreciate the city's help. Kelly and her team and Doug, they all have come together and got this done relatively quickly. And so, like Brent said, we're very excited, and we can do what we can do on the rec part to help make sure this moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ususi, do you have any further comments?
No, I've been around here since 1967, and I think the facilities out there were already in place prior to me being here. So we've, and a lot of those were just added here and there over a period of years. This is the first time we've actually had a chance to look at the facility as a whole and come up with a master plan. It's probably long overdue, and we have a chance to make the necessary improvements, get it right to where this plan, as it continues to move forward, will address a lot of the issues that we're facing now with it, and will get us into the future a good number of years. So it's a good start.
And we did have a previous master plan for this area that was part of the full park and rec plan that was done. I can't remember when it was done, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. But at that time, the soccer fields were in another location. They had different needs. And so this is basically a revision of that based on our current needs.
Commissioner Hayes?
Well, I just like, the idea that it's in the middle of the community where we can all reach it easily. You can walk to it even. So it's, just a great, I think, way to utilize the space there that is, fairly underutilized at this point for the soccer field. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what the next steps are. I'm prepared to make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, that was one of the important features of considering a central complex is the availability for the public and the children, a location that was easy for them to reach on their bicycles, safe environment, double use of parking, restroom, concessions. So, there's a lot of potential for the the site and to update what's been there since the early sixties will be a big asset for the community. So with, no further questions or comments, I will call for a motion.
I move to approve the revised master plan for Central Park and North Park Boulevard Sports Complex.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, consider revised recommendation from the Economic Development Advisory Board regarding a request from Labette Health to provide an economic development incentive to expand the Independence Healthcare Center.
We have, Brian Williams is here, and then also we have Lacey that works with the, committee. Which would you prefer to speak first?
Let's begin. Lacey, would you want to present or explain the recommendation from the Economic Development Advisory Board?
Sure, I'll just go over.
Oh, and you'll have to speak loud because of the telephone, in fact, of maybe moving closer. Or, what, try there, the phone's clear up here.
Okay.
So,
I will just go over a summary of the changes from the previous recommendation. Previously recommended was an incentive of $250,000 to be dispersed as a forgivable loan over a 5-year period. The new recommendation is in the form of a $600,000 grant to be dispersed over a 10-year period, so $60,000 for 10 years. There are stipulations to the grant, reporting requirements for the first 5 years, and it is tied to the number of employees that live within the city limits. Those employee numbers were derived off of the information that Labette Health provided for the committee to utilize in their cost benefit analysis. And really, that is the only major change from the previously recommended.
okay. Okay, any questions for Lacey?
Thanks for all your work, Lacey. I have no questions.
Commissioner Susi?
Thank you for providing the information at such a late notice to us. Appreciate it. Thank you, Lacey.
Okay, Brian, would you like to address the commission at this time?
Brad Oakes is on. He's on our Southeast Kansas Regional Health Board, so can he speak, or do you want me to speak first?
Brad, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me, Leonard?
Yes, I can. As
Okay.
board member, would you like to address the commission regarding the request?
Yes, I would, please. Thank you. I've lived here 25 years and have obviously built a very successful business in the area and the region, and my family has chosen to make Independence their home. 25% of our bank holdings are in Independence, and honestly, we spend 80% of our donation money in Independence. We make that because we love living here, and we're very committed, to the community, Leonard, and the commissioners. And so we understand and the importance and the need to have healthcare expansion. And I think Brian and his Labette team they've done a tremendous job of stepping up and doing what they've done in Independence. And this is an extension of what they've already done and takes us into the future. And I think when you look around the community and you ask what's important, you guys addressed earlier what was important in regards to our posterity, our children, our future, the safety of our children, education, healthcare ranks right up there with education for me, and then of course city services like fire and ambulance rank right up there in the top three for me. And we've given a lot of money to Labette, to be honest, $350,000 over the last 3 or 4 years. And I guess what I'd like to do is see the city. Maybe Lacey had sent me the breakdown in the Excel spreadsheet, and it looks like there's an opportunity to maybe reallocate some of that money as Labette expands. Our economic development opportunities in the community expand. And so I feel like there's an opportunity to step up and maybe be a little more aggressive than $60,000 a year over the next 10 years. I would like to recommend the city consider $100,000 a year for the next 10 years. And what having that expanded services not only quality of our life and extends our lives, it also creates economic development opportunities for us here in Independence. And I would further say, if there's economic, if the city can find those extra funds in their budget, and there is economic development opportunity, First Oak Bank's always one of the local businesses right there willing to step up and make a donation or a contribution to economic development to help develop our community and try to actually that's kind of where I'm at, gentlemen, and that's what I'd like to have you consider. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Brian?
Yeah, so the only thing I would add is, thank you really to the Economic Development Committee, because I think their advisory board, I think $600,000 is very generous. Lacey shared the spreadsheet with Brad and I, so we were kind of looking at it. KPMG accountants, I'm not really going to question the numbers. So they are what they are. I really think it's like I said before, and I said the Economic Development Committee, we're a team. We all live in environments of austerity. I think it was really great to show that beautiful picture of the park and $4.5 million before I passed, because you got all kinds of needs. So $60,000 is very generous. It makes a lot more sense because the figures we were using was a $390,000 budget. So $60,000 didn't seem that much, but it looks like some of it's already allocated to things. So thank you. I hope you'll approve it. It would make it a lot easier for us. I haven't had a chance to look at all of this. The original language that was sent to me on November 12th is a little more palatable because it's clearer. So the difference between a forgivable loan and a grant, a forgivable loan, we have to carry on our books. We can't recognize the revenue. So like the $325,000 that was given to us in 2017, we just now were able to recognize that as revenue in 2020. So you carry it really as a liability. So I don't want to speak for Lacey, but I think both of us would be easier if it's really clear what the grant's tied to early on, and then it's just a grant, it's just given. I think we can work with Jeff. If we closed, if we went out of business, obviously you wouldn't pay us. So it needs to be that kind of wind down or termination language. And a question came up that I would share with you, that was posed to me by the advisory board. They said, we're comfortable with you because we've gotten to know you. We didn't know you 5 years ago. But what if you leave? Or, I can't remember if they said, hit by a truck or die of a heart attack or any of those things. More likely falling out of a deer stand right now. But, the answer is that's why we put Southeast Kansas Regional Health Board in place. Charles Barker's on it. Brad Oaks is on it. Matt Sutherland. And then I'm not the board chair, Perry Sorrell is. So all the people that compose that board are people that have lived here since 1965 25 years plus. So don't feel nervous that whether I'm here or not here, obviously Independence Healthcare Center will go on. So, subject to your questions, I would just say thank you. $600,000 is very generous. $2 million is better. $1 million is better, but you guys have to make the decision of what you can do based on your staff's recommendations. So, any questions for me?
Question for Brian right now?
I don't, Brian. Thank you for your presentation.
Louis?
Appreciate your support.
I don't either, Brian. Thank you very much for everything that you're doing to help the community.
My hope is that you guys can vote on something tonight, so I can know. We are doing the soil testing. We're gonna move forward. If it's 600,000, that just means I gotta find $1.4 million somewhere. And I talked to one of you earlier today, and, you know, I shared it with you, and I'll share it with the other two commissioners. If we didn't have a $22 million building project going on during a global pandemic, I wouldn't be here asking. And that's why, you know, I'm asking. So, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Commissioners, we've heard the presentation. I know we've all probably got different ideas, see where we can go from here. You know, I know the community, the city has to have a foundation, and the foundation, I think, is our education, our healthcare, and the city services, the infrastructures and things. I know when we first met, the notice that Mercy was no longer going to provide health care, what the response was, and with myself and the other two commissioners and city manager, we not panicked, but we scrambled to find what avenue we would go with. And when we started researching the possible solutions, Jane Phillips was brought up, and then initially with them, the request to make it pliable was $3 million. Once they backed out, we contacted CRMC and offered them the same. When Labette stepped forward, we withdrew the offer. They came and provided us with what we asked for, emergency health care and a clinic, and it's been a great asset. I had friends at that time that without health care, they chose to relocate out of town, and the emergency department and clinic has stabilized that void that we lost. I think a lot of good has come through the years, growing. The interlocal agreement, the partnership with our EMS program, just one of the examples with David was sharing me that now with this and the similar operating standards from the three, that if there's a crisis in one city, we can cooperate and we can step in. So, you know, we've come a long ways in 5 years with healthcare, and you know, I would hope that what we have to do is we look at our spending, our priorities. Where's our priority? And you know, I would like to see if we would look closer to the $2 million amount if we could, that was requested. I know it's adjusting a lot of priorities, and if it can be reached, it's major. But you know, the projects we have coming up, there's some changes as we went through the process. Our big impact budget-wise was the operation of Building D that went from $120,000 a year to $430,000. So, you know, by downsizing, we'll see some change, more efficient systems, so we're kind of at the crossroads in a lot of areas, but, I would like to see us get closer to the 2 million, and we've come a long way with the 600,000. I'm not scoffing at that, but I'd like to see if we can reach a little farther. So, commissioners, I'll let you add in now. Commissioner Hayes?
Thank you. First of all, I really would like to once again reinforce thank you to the vet for their investment in the community and their continued interest in growth in the community. We are profoundly thankful that we have the emergency room and the clinic here, and it has stabilized a lot of the people's health care concerns. So thank you for that. Also, thank you to the Economic Development Advisory Board. Very recently formed, these community leaders have come together and have crafted what I believe is a process. I challenged them when I spoke to them that everything they do, because they're fairly new, is establishing a precedent for the future members of the organization, the future members of the Economic Development Advisory Board to follow. And I challenged them to create a process that was consistent, that could be applied consistently across industries, be capable of handling that type of flexibility across businesses and industries, and could be repeatable, therefore, meaning that if the same type or same level of application was received, it would also receive the same amount of funding. Therefore, you would not be prone to playing favorites. I believe that they have been very successful in doing that with this particular proposal. The $600,000 is based on definite, defined economic benefits for the community that will persist over time and are worthy of the continued support that they are providing. Those jobs that we're talking about will bring families, will purchase homes, will pay taxes, will put people put children into our school systems, et cetera, et cetera. These are the types of drivers within our community that give us positive economic growth. The growth of the community is not good. The growth of the community's property values is not good. These are the types of things we feel like we should be incentivizing, which what I'm referring to is the jobs. If there is no tie to this type of economic driver, then really what we're just talking about is giving tax money out as a gift or an entitlement. And I don't think that the local government is in that business. We leave that to the federal government for entitlements and handouts. So we're not going to be good stewards of the money that is in the city's coffers if we don't have a rational and careful approach to any monies that are being awarded. I think the Economic Development Advisory Board has developed such a process and such a package, and this incentive stands, I think, complete. So I'm ready to vote on the motion.
Commissioner Ususi?
Well, gentlemen, we seem to have a varied opinion among all three of us. When I had talked about this earlier, I had looked at a figure somewhere between 500,000 and up to $1 million. And the reason why the amount was such a huge amount, and $1 million is a huge amount, even though the $600,000 that we are considering tonight is a huge amount, is that it's basically one of the three pillars that we are having to, our community is going to stand on. And that is probably one of the biggest drivers that will bring economic development into the town. They are going to look, industry, as what kind of health facilities, what kind of health providers, what kind of health services do you have here? And that will put us in competition with other communities, and they will look at those, what kind of health facilities do you have on site? What's the potential for growth of your healthcare facilities? Even though there are other entities that require money, and I understand that. But this one here seems to be one of the elephants in the room, and there's no getting around the actual size and what it actually contributes to the community, not only now, but in the long term, especially with all the issues that we're facing health-wise, with the COVID-19, with all the strain on infrastructure, retaining good, qualified people to maintain and run our healthcare systems. It's becoming even increasingly vital to a community that we establish and maintain a very healthy, viable healthcare system that can continue to grow, because that is something that we are going to continue to have to rely on and fall upon, not only now, but in the immediate future, because the health issues are never going to go away. There'll be a new virus somewhere down the road. It'll be mutated SARS-2. COVID-19 is just another mutation of SARS-2. We're always going to be battling these issues. So to have a robust healthcare system that provides quality service, and I can understand wanting to put everything on an equal footing, but this one here seems to be just a notch above everything else that we are looking at. So I would have liked to have seen us move in a direction to where, if possible, that we could come up with an additional amount of money to hit that $1 million target that I felt comfortable with. I'm not so sure we can go much further than that, because we do have a lot of pressing needs. We have a lot of things that are coming up that are going to involve some financial wizardry, to put it mildly. So it's if I had the money, I'd write you a check. It'd be a no-brainer for me, but unfortunately, I don't. But that's my thoughts on it, gentlemen. So we're kind of in three different places as a commission.
I guess the one way to determine is start with motions, and we vote until we get a majority in support. So, I think each of us have good points.
I would start, therefore, if you wish, with the motion that's in front of us.
Okay.
I move to approve the proposed grant incentive to Levant Health as recommended by the Economic Development Advisory Board, and for the city attorney to draft an agreement for that grant.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No.
Nay. No.
Okay, motion failed. Commissioner Ususi, do you have?
Yes,
Tobacco console overdose, 414 South 14.
I move to, let me see here. To approve the post-grant incentive to Labette Health, in the amount not to exceed $1 million.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
You made
Yeah,
a motion.
second, I'm sorry.
I have a motion.
I didn't finish the rest of that, and for the city attorney to draft anything. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Did you get the full motion?
Okay. I
So
thought
we have a motion. Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay?
Motion carried. So we'll turn it to Kelly. Will you handle the review and, okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consider programming for 1916 City Hall and Fire EMS. Chris, your present is, anyone else here with you tonight?
Vance is on the phone.
Vance, are you on the phone still?
I am, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Chris, that's your name, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sure, if I remembered correctly. So, would you like to, begin?
Would you like him to come up a little bit closer?
Yes, if you could, because we don't have, the microphones aren't working. We got to make sure that everyone can hear on the phone. So,
Oh, you have the clicker? Is it hooked up? Just tell David he's advancing the slide.
Okay, what I'm gonna present tonight is our new revised floor plan for the fire station. I also have images of the other floor plan, I don't know if you have those in front of you or not. I'd like to, kind of compare those two facilities, what we have
Oh.
before and what we have now. I think on the city hall, and we have the images for city hall as well.
It's the new one, the new revised?
is the big one the new one? That's the
Yes, that's the revised one.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, thank you. The slideshow's put together.
There we
so I
go.
can go back and forth.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need him to advance?
Could you go back?
Okay, that was the old one, on screen.
Yeah, that one. So I wanted to kind of look at the site real quick and let you guys kind of know what we've kind of talked about and what we're trying to do. So the existing apparatus space, and we're also doing kind of an alternate to add on to that for another ladder truck for a larger vehicle. And if we do that, we're gonna put that on the left side of the building, or on the west side of the building. And in order to do that, we're gonna probably have to rearrange that parking lot to the north a little bit. We don't think we're gonna lose any spaces, but we are gonna reallocate that drive so that they can make that turn a lot earlier before they get to the building, so that they'll be able to drive straight through, not have to back that vehicle off. If that makes sense. So that's a little bit of importance about what we're trying to do. The other thing we're doing is, we're gonna take that existing, building and create two new openings on the north side of the building. And what that does, it keeps them from parking one vehicle behind the other. So to get out, the first vehicle would have to move, so the second vehicle could get out. We can add two more openings to the north side of that building, and the vehicles could leave independent of each other.
So what you'll do is you relocate the, platform truck from the east to the west, probably the new bay, but how do you get in to drive through?
We would reallocate the parking spaces in that lot to the north, so that the truck would come in and then make the turn earlier and then be able to drive straight into that. That truck is so long, it needs space in front of and behind the building to get straight to go in, so it's not going down an angle.
So then, for sale of the property, then we'd have to keep an easement
Yes.
through the parking lot.
Yes, I don't think there's any other way for them to actually make that S turn or
No.
that curve to get that vehicle inside there.
That's what I was having trouble following
Yes.
with you, to come in and try and come make a U.
It would be difficult.
So will the parking lot, you haven't investigated whether the parking lot's a thick enough base to handle
We have
a truck?
We have not. Usually that cross-section for asphalt is, I mean, the trucks on that parking lot's all over and on the highway. What happens is when it makes that turn, you know, it puts a lot of stress on the pavement.
But if that parking lot's only 4 or 5 inches, will it support the weight of it?
My first thought would be no. I would think we do two different things, or we either create a concrete drive at those turns, or we thicken that asphalt section in the drive aisle itself. We don't have to do the whole thing. We just do the
Well, I mean, coming from the north through the north parking lot, you'd have to cut out and put a heavier lane clear through there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm following you.
I think if we don't accommodate this new addition with the site, we're kind of fooling ourselves thinking it's gonna work easily. So we're gonna have to look at it outside the building as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is the floor plan of the old one, and I just wanted you guys to see it for reference. I didn't know what you guys remembered or didn't remember. And I won't take a lot of time on this plan. But basically, there's some inefficiencies in the way that laid out, and that's kind of like what we talked about. And a lot of times inefficiencies cause the cost of construction to be a little bit higher. Some of the areas that are in that plan are a little bit inefficient as well, just like you kind of look at a hallway that goes all the way around the block area. We're creating a lot of space for movement that I don't think we needed. So kind of like your request or your charge for me was to go back and make this plan better and find out what we can do to reduce the cost. Basically, the goal. Okay, so this floor plan is the new plan. It's kind of at a large scale. I have it zoomed in also. You can go ahead and extract it as well. But this is kind of the same similar layout. All the pieces and parts as far as the program areas are basically in the same location. Just once you kind of look closer, you can see some of the areas we've actually reduced the size of them. Okay, so that's the old plan. Go to the next one. Okay. So starting with front door, that's kind of an entry or a lobby space. So that as people come to either go to training or if they come to this station, that's what it'll be. I also changed the locations of the old workout fitness area and the training area to this one. And we kind of said that in the last meeting. It made a lot of sense to let someone from an outside agency who's coming in for training be kind of at the front door instead of deep into the station. I moved the fitness area to the station. I'm assuming most of the firefighters are going to be using that. I brought it closer to where they're going to live and places that they're going to use. It also keeps someone from outside of the station to come all the way back into their living room if they don't need to be there. So it creates a little bit of a separation there. There's still a space for employees, city employees, or other people in the community. If you want to open it up for someone to use it, they can still use it. They have access from the public side without going into the kind of semi-secure fire station. The other thing I've done is if you look at the bunk area, the sleeping area, I've reduced the size of each of them and kind of created a more formal arrangement, and it looks a lot cleaner. They're kind of in a box, if you will. They don't protrude out of the floor plate the way they were before. Administration's in about the same spot. We've got 3 offices in that location, and then some support workstations, which is the same thing that we had before. And then the living area, it got a little bit more efficient as well. The kind of dining, living, and kitchen areas are all kind of one big open space. And so that, before it was a little bit more spread out, and we had the outdoor patio, it's kind of an internal space, and now we've moved it totally outside the building. And lastly, we kind of added on part of the station, parts of the apparatus bay that they need to do their work. Like they need an FPBA equipment, they need a decontamination area for when they come back from calls before they enter the station. There's a hose drying area, work area, and then with storage space as well. The last plan, we kind of touched that existing apparatus in like 4 different spots, which meant we were punching 4 holes into that existing building, which is inefficient. So now I kind of combine those work areas so that there's only 2 openings, so that they're a little bit larger than they were before, but we're not trying to tie into those 2 buildings. 4 spaces we're just tying it into, which helps accommodate the existing position. You will see that the day room, that living area, the workout facility, and the training room is actually bigger than it was before. So I took a lot of the spaces that were inefficient on the living quarters, if you will, and left them with all the amenities they need and kind of gave it back to bigger spaces, which I think will be used quite a bit. Overall, this floor plan is a little bit bigger than the last one is, just due to that fact. We also entertained pre-engineered building, and that seemed to accommodate a lot of the cost concerns as well. And I took this new plan and we had it repriced, and the contractor looked at it and all the changes that we made, and they reduced it. Is there any questions about the plan or those changes or anything that you see or don't understand with that?
The locker room by the exercise, is that anticipated for, outside visitors or?
Yes. So if you open that up to city staff per se, and if they want to come work out, that can be a spot where they can put their personal belongings, go work out, and there's even a kind of a bathroom adjacent to that with a shower, so that if they wanted to shower and then go on with the rest of their day or whatever they're doing, they could do that as well.
So men and women would go just in the locker room to deposit their coat, then change in the restroom, and then go in.
Correct.
You're not looking at a change locker room.
It's just to put your belongings, if you want to put them in the locker and lock it, you could do that, purses or personal items or whatever clothes you're going to change into after. Before I had both of those bathrooms kind of in that same area, it felt like it made a lot more sense to kind of turn that bathroom out to that public space so that if there's a big training event going on, they'll have 2 restrooms that they could use. And I think they're going to need those. And then it's also located back there so that in the exercise area, they could still come in and out and use that bathroom. I think we had 3, I don't have it planned for me, I think we did have 3 bathrooms in there too, yeah. So I had 2 restrooms and 1 shower, and I reduced that to 2 bathrooms and 1 shower. To try to, I don't know that you need 2 showers in that area.
And you've shared the revised plan with, staff.
Yeah, I think everyone, we've made a few changes from things you aren't even seeing until we got here. The last one was kind of the decontamination area, and it's out kind of off the apparatus bay, and that's going to be a space where there's going to be a emergency shower type wash and an eye wash area. And the comment that came up was if someone's out on a call and they get contaminated in one other way or dirty and don't want to bring all that stuff into the station, they could go out there, they would have to be semi-dressed. There can be shower curtains around that area so that visibly you can't see anyone, but they'd have to change somewhere to keep from coming back into the station. We also moved the laundry room that used to be the sleeping area out there just adjacent to that, so whatever clothes, personal clothes they brought in with them, they could wash them right there. Seemed like it made a lot of sense. It's kind of a noisy function anyway. It's kind of nice that it's out there where all the activities happen.
Yeah, that's good. Commissioner Hayes?
I like it.
Commissioner Susi?
I like the changes that you've made on this. What is the total square footage now of that revision there?
The apparatus bay addition is 2,070 square feet. That's just that one piece on the west side, which is the same that it was before. The station itself is 9,245 square feet. Previously, it was 8,952 square feet.
And being a pre-engineered building, that's really dropped the square foot costs down to,
Yeah, so I asked the contractor to reprice these again with these changes, and a pre-engineered metal building as being the option that we wanna go with. And previously, the number was like $2,651,000, kind of that number we talked about last time. And they gave me a high and a low range, and I'm using the higher range, because I think it's important to keep our numbers there until we have more decisions made. Right now, so they've broken this out for me. So the base bid for the station itself, not the addition, is $1,650,000, which is the station. And then the apparatus bay addition is $245,000. That's the number that we're carrying. I'm not trying to confuse you, because I keep throwing out a bunch of numbers, but
no,
basically it's come down like $750,000 all in if we build the whole station out with the Abbey addition and the fire station, so.
does that 245,000 on the apparatus bay that is factored into that additional concrete work if needed?
No, I do not have any site work for additional.
Okay, so that will be if we need to, beef up that particular part.
It is not in this number.
It's not in this number, okay, okay.
They use the documents that you guys have all seen to kind of put their information together. Some of the stuff we've talked about, like the utilities and the moving of some of those things. We went out there and toured the site again today, and there's some things we saw out there. Nothing that was too concerning, but these numbers are pretty good for the level of detail that we provided them.
Right.
There's contingencies in these numbers as well. Every good contractor out there today or anywhere is putting contingencies for things they don't know about. And they call them design contingencies or owner contingencies. The fire department wants to come in and add something or do something during the design.
Right.
They've got money if that will help bridge some of those situations. So.
Do you have any more questions, Commissioner Hayes, for Chris?
Not on the design, we'll get into the cost, no doubt, next, right?
Right.
Okay.
Commissioner Eustace?
No, I'm good with that phase, that part.
Cost?
Cost indeed. Is there a slide for that, or will we be talking from the notes that you distributed earlier?
From the RCA is where I have the cost. I believe his presentation is mainly drawings, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I've got a slide to talk about construction delivery methods. We kind of talked about that last time,
Okay.
different ways that.
Let's,
Does that drive cost?
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So what, you guys have those printed off?
all we had
Print that out.
in the RCA, there was a schedule of the costs, just a summary.
I think I remember that, so I'm good to go.
Okay.
Well, what this does, it kind of talks about delivery methods for the project, from any project, not just this one.
Speak up.
So what this slide shows is the delivery methods for projects. Pretty typical and standard for today's construction climate. The first one on the left talks about a design, bid, build, which is pretty traditional. Architects or designers draw buildings. They get to the end of the design, all the decisions are made, they go out to bidders, and you're kind of waiting to see what this thing costs. And we talked about it last time. We know a lot of historic numbers and what things should cost, but the true market cost today is only known by a bid date. So whatever things cost, whether it's really high because of whatever economic reasons are really low, the bid, and that's what the project's going to cost. So there's a lot of advantages and things to think about through there for that delivery method, but mainly the contracts for the designers and the contractor are independent of each other. So we're contracted with the owner, and we go through that whole process, and then the contractor comes in with a bid, they're reviewed and approved, and then they contract with the owner. So it's kind of a two separate stage process. And I don't need to read all of those items, but I can't from here, but I do have it in front of me. But some of the biggest advantages are you've gone through all of that design work, and now you finally find out truly what the market will bear, what it will cost. And if it's over budget and we can't afford it, then we go back to design, which just lengthens the project significantly, potentially. So it's a really long delivery method, if you will, of the finished product. The next one is construction manager at risk. And it's fairly similar, except for you can kind of see that dashed line between designer and contractor. And out of all of the items, that's one of the most important things for us, is that as we design, we have a construction manager who's talking to us about how much those things cost, and making sure that our design doesn't go past the budget, with real life numbers from trade partners or subcontractors. A lot of people think, well, that means that we don't get the competitiveness of traditional bidding. Well, they're actually bidding, and you do get competitive through the trade subcontractors as the project goes. So they don't just bid to one person. They take bids from multiple persons, and then they'll use the most qualified person with the best bid. So the collaboration between designer and contractor, that's the biggest advantage to me and to the owner through that process. The last one is design build. Basically, that's the situation where you've contracted with a contractor, and then the contractor has contracts with the trade partners and the designers to deliver the project. That one, at this point in the project, is kind of stepping back, since we're already in design and we already have this contracting process going. I wanted to include it as still a viable option. I didn't want to say, well, without design build. I wanted to add that.
Yeah, with the design build, the owner only has the contractor to rely on. The owner doesn't have an independent set of eyes looking out for their own interest. The traditional design, bid, build, and construction manager, the designer's still tied to the owner, so they get their instructions from the owner. And the contractor works for the owner too, so there's some control. With design build, the designer only gets instructions from the contractor. That the designer then still working for the owner, and the construction manager risk, you still are there as independent eyes. If it starts deviating outside of what was agreed upon in performance spec, then the designer still works for the owner to look out for the owner's interest.
It definitely removes any opportunities for conflict of interest. Exactly. And so who you're contracted to and how we represent those will definitely change in those methods.
And then at design time, you're getting input for decisions of materials and means and methods that can affect the end cost of the project. The traditional bid, it's your interpretation and development of the specifications and materials that drive the cost, and if the contractor can come up with an acceptable means and methods that you'll buy that's cheaper than what you've specified, then he benefits from the savings, not the owner. So.
And what, a lot of times when it's seen at risk, the contractor, the general contractor, they're already part of the decision-making team with the owner. So you pair it up early, make good decisions with that person, and now they're your advocate too, not just the designers. And then it turns into getting the best quality trade partners for their bid. It's really kind of I don't know if I want to call it a hybrid or not, but it's definitely between the two extremes of that process and how it works. It's been very successful for us. We've done design build projects and they've been successful too, but that you're relying on that contractor and their quality of work to help achieve that as well. So I wanted to bring those up because you requested and kind of asked, hey, what does these methods mean and how can they benefit the project? And
Commissioner Hayes, in the past, have you, had projects that have utilized the, construction manager or the design?
No, I have not. My recent experience is through the Kansas League of Municipalities and recent training they had at the last conference with contractors of this regard who were espousing the advantages of construction manager at risk or design build over the traditional methodology because of flexibility, because of more rapid implementation, and that's a big deal because the slower, or that even in our own projects, as we have this traditional design bid build process, you have seems to be plenty of change, opportunities for change, which creates another approval cycle every time you have a change order and such like that. If those are caught early enough and the negotiation takes place early enough, it speeds things along and it helps the timing. The delay, I'm just pointing to the delay on the 1916 City Hall building right now is just a good example of how probably that some of those communications just weren't as fine-tuned as they would be in one of the other options, either with construction manager at risk or design build. So,
I think with the construction manager risk concerning change orders, that some of the problems that come up during construction is something not detailed or specified or called out in the construction drawings prepared in the traditional design bid build method, that you actually have the contractor now, that he's building it as the drawings are being developed, so you cut down on the occurrence of those. Now you're limited to unforeseen site conditions or existing conditions that do increase the product cost. What I don't like about design build is, we put our trust in the architect, our designer, he's our representative, and we switch that to the contractor. So there's a gap in understanding where our quality, who looks out for the owner's interest, where the other two methods, the designer is in that part, even though in construction manager risk, the designer and the contractor are tied, that if something deviates a direction it shouldn't go, I would hope the integrity of the designer would come to the owner and say, hey, we got a problem. This isn't what we talked on. The materials have been switched, the work is substandard, the quality of in-place concrete, it's not meeting spec, so you still have that protection for the owner that you lose in the design build. And you're totally got to select your contractor and be totally familiar with them for design build. The advantages of a construction manager at risk and controlling cost is better than the traditional design bid build.
That construction manager is involved early, which we talked about. One of the bigger things, I don't know if I've heard things said yet, is they understand the scope of the project way better than someone who's just looking at drawings and flipping through them and saying, okay, we got 3 weeks, we got a month, we got 5 weeks, whatever, to bid this thing. Send it out to all the subs, they all send numbers in. Well, there's opportunities for mistakes to happen in that bidding process when that construction manager's on board, and they're in the design meetings with us. We're all collaborating together. They understand why something's a certain way and what can't be changed and what could be changed. That's a huge part of it too. And at the end of the documents, and they go out, the at-risk part is over, because they've got their bids in, they understand the scope is fully covered, and it's a great delivery. implemented in process. It definitely saves time from the beginning of a project to the end of construction, for sure.
Commissioner Susi?
I like what your presentation on that, and I can see the advantages, the construction manager at risk. I think Coffeyville did that design build on their facility. I think it took them somewhere 2.5 to 3 years to finally get to a point where they actually had a facility that they were ready to move forward on. They kept making additional changes as they went along. It was a lengthy process for them. They did a public safety building on West 11.
Commissioner Hayes, any other questions?
Not on this slide, no.
Okay.
What else we got?
Well, that's all the presentation for the fire station and the delivery method. I do have floor plans of City Hall. We didn't really have any changes from our last meeting, so I didn't think and I haven't heard anything from city staff or anybody either. I've got them, and they might be in your packet kind of for reference, just in case you didn't remember where everything was going and what was going on. We just toured the City Hall today, and they're coming along great on that. They've got some windows they still need to put in place because of some of the arches and the long lead time for those items. So that project's getting ready to move into this phase. We'd like to move forward with that as well. But both of these projects are together, so we're kind of looking for approval to move forward with the design process.
So I guess tonight, our task is to, accept the preliminary plans that we've seen both on 1916 City Hall and, the fire EMS. So we can, then,
I have a question, but before you go any further, just one more question that popped up in my head.
okay.
I know there was a delay on windows. Are some of the windows starting to show up for the 1916 City Hall?
Yeah, they've got most of them replaced. There's some still there being replaced. They're being stored in that lower level. We're gonna get those in place. And I think there was just a little bit of delay on some of the frames because of the arches.
Right.
So they were kind of waiting on those specialty shapes or sizes for those. And once they get those, that will be in. And I don't know, I think they're pretty much nearing the end of their contract or their scope of work.
Is that, the timeline for them, for those specialty windows, is that narrowed down as far as the delivery point, do you know?
I do not know the date. Vance might know on the phone. Hey Vance, do you know the delivery dates of the windows on that second floor?
No, I had reached out to Hofer and Hofer, hoping that I would have the delivery date for you, and I was not able to hear back from them.
All right. Thank you, Vance.
So I think tonight our task is to, approve the plans for the two facilities. Then the next step would be to, have a proposal for services on the fire EMS. We don't have a proposal.
It would be a supplemental agreement with Trainer to that construction administration that wasn't approved before, on what the current design.
Right, and for that supplemental agreement, we're getting close, I think, to time we would need to decide if we want to proceed traditional design bid build or proceed with design, construction manager at risk. Am I correct?
Yes.
So, commissioners, how do you?
Can I say one thing before you just to talk about that process? We have a lot of work to do to move forward until you get that construction manager group on board. I mean, that's a little bit of a process too. So, but there's a lot of things that we can do, and then but not make the crucial or critical or decisions that will cause us to not be able to go back and change something. But there's a lot of things we can do to advance our drawings and our design.
Well, what I was wondering if the commission just to give you instructions to proceed, are you interested in the traditional, design bid build, or is your preference for the design, construction manager? Commissioner Hayes, what?
It seems that the modern approach is the construction manager at risk. If we haven't done that before, it's possibly we did just because we're late to the party. So I'd say I'm in favor of pursuing for this project a construction manager at risk. I have more to say, but I'll stop there until the right question is asked.
Okay. Commissioner Eustace?
I'm also in agreement with construction manager at risk.
I think there would be advantages in proceeding with that type also. So, the question at a later date, or is it?
No, it's pertinent.
Okay. Okay.
And the question might be, because I was new to the commission at the time this conversation was either already in progress or we started the whole idea of programming so that we would know how to build a building that would accommodate our city hall. And so I thought that that was an important data point. We really needed to know what it would look like so we would know how much it would cost. And so the additional comments I have to say is that with the $6.5 million price tag in front of us right now, I could be proven wrong here in the next moment, but it seems to me like this is a time to pause before making any substantial decisions moving forward, and to say, and maybe have the others weigh in on whether $6.5 million is the next $6.5 million we spend is going to be spent on city hall facilities, or whether we have a better use for that money, and whether the concept that building D is an expensive alternative to a new building relative to a $6.5 million construction price tag, and then there's associated costs with moving things around and buying new furniture and pictures and other accommodations that would have to be made to move. I just think that there's more conversation to be had before we do anything else. I think we have the number, which is $6.5 million, and whether that still seems to be rational with regard to, this process, because it would seem to me that if it were free to move back, that's pretty obvious. But there's a break even at some point in time where it just doesn't make sense to go through all of the effort to move out if you're not going to save any money. And $6.5 million, I have some rough calculations that I've done, and it's based on a payback period, or maybe even a net present value calculation, or however you want to do it. Taxpayers in Independence won't see $1 of savings for decades and decades. So it doesn't make sense if it's a cost savings measure. It doesn't really make sense anymore to putting more money into it. So there has to be other rationale, or it's not worth it. We've got better things to spend $6.5 million on. That's where I am at this point. I'd kind of like to show you, or have an opportunity to show both of you those numbers, and to show you where I got them from, and so we could develop especially some questions about where, if we did want expert advice on, costs, where we would need to go, and then we could give that list to Kelly and say, go go hire these experts and develop these costs for us so that we can know what this is gonna look like. That's where I am, and that's why this next motion about, improving, the, programming, may be more or less moot, because it's expensive, and, we may not wish to spend any more money on it.
I think we need to complete with the acceptance of the plan. Now, the question of whether it's going to be cost efficient to stay in a building that, and operate a building that was designed as a hospital and change HVAC systems and deal with the cost of a building that is larger, it's twice the size of what we need. We're adding 9,000 square feet for fire EMS, and we've got 25,000 square feet in existing city hall.
Well, just over 20,000.
So we're at 30,000 square feet, and we're in a 60,000 square foot building. And we're back to the same that, we were given $500,000 to take a building off somebody's hands. And it cost, our original projection of operation was $180,000 a year for utilities, and we're at $430,000. The numbers, are not there. If you want to make an office, you can't change motor size, and you got a power plant that's designed for our 150,000 square feet that's heating and cooling 60,000 square feet. The efficiencies aren't there.
Sorry for the interruption. I'd just like to put some numbers to that, because I understand the anecdotal portion of that, and how there are deficiencies in the current building. So the $6.5 million is the difference between good and great. But it's a building, it's got square footage, and we got people in it, and they're doing the job right now. So the difference, the $6.5 million we're paying out doesn't change the quality of work, it doesn't change the kind of work that's being done, it doesn't change the availability of space, it doesn't change, all of the changes is operating costs at the end of a 25 or 30 year payback period, because the operating costs of the existing building D simply don't, there's just not enough of a cost exaggeration or a cost inflation for operations to offset the $6.5 million over 25 or 30 years for the loan repayment or the just the capital. So I'd like to show you those numbers, because if there's a rationale financially for it, I'm all in favor. But the difference between good and great, $6.5 million, a lot of us settle for a less valuable car because we just can't afford it, or a less spacious house, or a less, we're not going to put that siding on and that insulation in because we can't afford the capital to do that, so we just continue to pay more on our electricity bill for the near term. That's the individual decisions that we make, and it's not unlike this decision for the city, as those costs that we see as extreme in occupying Building D are wild. They just don't compare to $6.5 million worth of construction costs. There's really no comparison, or there is a comparison, and it's it's decades away before we see any profound savings.
Well,
So I'd like to show those to you so that you can see what I'm looking at, and maybe we can, come up with an idea about how to proceed from there. There are aspects of this, of this program, the programming, that I think are very instructive and that we ought to pursue, even if we don't build new structures. My concern continues to be that we are normally careful, we are normally very considerate of cost, we normally put cost controls in place and say, we're not going to depart from those cost controls like the purchasing policy that we have. We have a really excellent purchasing policy that guides the city staff on how much they can expend or whatever. And yet we don't spend money on a whim normally. We do it because of careful consideration. And this is a big project, $6.5 million, and it's going to take a while to fund it and pay off the debt. All of that adds up too. So the savings from air conditioning and airflow management and electricity costs are high in the old hospital building. But other than that, it was the safest place to be during a pandemic by a long way. So I don't know, that's what I'm asking for. After we vote on the approval of the programming, I think we need to tap the brakes here a little bit and take a look at whether we want to spend this money this way.
I would like to make a couple of comments. And I understand, I'll take a look at your figures, but I'll want to drop a figure on you right now. As of 2020, the O&M at the Building D, I'm going to my memory here, and I may be off $100,000, but it's 2.15 or $250,000 that we will have allocated for O&M on that building through the year 2020. And that's money that the 1916 facility, the last year, 2015 full year that we were in the building. Now, granted, it needed a lot of improvement, but the operating cost that what I was able to pull off the city records was somewhere between $109,000 and $110,000. If my memory corrects me, you estimated that the operations and maintenance on this renovated facility was, I believe, $139,000 a year. That's an estimate. But I think I quoted it as 135 several weeks or months ago, and I believe it was given to me by one of your people at $139,000. So that's a lot of money there. My other comment is that we did have an entity that looked at it as a mental health facility, and we missed out on that opportunity. But Lord knows we need mental health facilities throughout the country, particularly Kansas could use that. The building I've talked to, I have a relative that's a psychiatrist in the Austin, Texas area, and he has familiar with other people that are looking for facilities to come in and establish a mental health clinic. He was very interested in the building if it had been modified, and it hadn't been modified. And also you're looking at on the back side of this, if this project moves forward with the 1916 City Hall and the fire and EMS, we're still looking at $900,000 in historical tax credit incentives that are going to come back to the city. So to me, that the building has value, but the building was built for a hospital on an efficiency rating of 1 to 100, with 100 being the most efficient. It's a 1. So I would be willing to look at figures, but we've kind of been through this
Well, I appreciate.
over a long period of time.
And I take it from there and say that, once again, I understand the anecdotal portions of what you're saying there, that there could very well be a purchase. What's the probability of that happening? We can't assign that. There's going to be a lot of availability of administrative and office spaces after the COVID pandemic is over, because companies everywhere are learning how to outsource their office environment into smaller spaces, into home offices, into co-working spaces, and they're just gonna, for years afterwards, after COVID ends, there's going to be a glut of commercial space on the market. I don't think anyone would be speculating that this is a great time to go out and buy an empty building. It's just not, it doesn't make sense to me. So that's my anecdotal add to the conversation. What makes sense to me is dollars and cents, and we can do the math. The math is easy. You're going to save $300,000 a year, but you're going to spend $6 million. It's going to take 20 years of savings before you see the first dollar of money back in your pocket. That's a long time. A lot of things can happen in 20 years. I don't know why we would ever do that. In my previous employment, if it took more than 3 years to pay back on capital investment for materials, for capital equipment, you just had to wait because that wasn't good enough. Well, we're talking about a government, so we are longer lived entities than commercial businesses, but 20-year payback it's a long time. I know I'll be really old in 20 years. I probably won't care about it in 20 years. But today I care that the citizens of Independence are getting a good value for their money, and whether or not the current economics of Building D are higher than they were in a building that is no longer available to us and non-existent is also inconsequential. I can't turn back the hands of time and go back to 1985 and say, let's start doing this deferred maintenance now so that we don't have to move out of 1916 City Hall building in 2016 or 17. So I can't do that. All I can do is tell you this. The costs as I see them and the extended payback as I see it seems to me to be a very problematic thing for us to move forward on when there are other much more dire needs within the community that are not yet funded. So I'd like to open that conversation up more broadly.
Well, that was all under consideration when the initial plan studies were made, and the decision by the committee was to not stay in Building D and pursue this. That was why the direction, and originally it was like 16 million. So for the project, it was 16 million. We brought it down to 6 million. And we did have a buyer. The reason that the deal fell through is the previous city manager told them that we didn't want to sell the building. I had contact with the developer that was working to sell the building, and that's the information he told me direct, that they were no longer interested because they were told that the building was no longer for sale. So there was a market, there was an opportunity to sell, to bring economic development to town, and it was squandered. But tonight, our motion is to deal with the fire and the 1916 City Hall fire apparatus. We'll take your comments and your study and look at that at a later date. But tonight, we will deal with the plans that have been presented. So with that, I'll call for a motion at this time.
I make a motion. I move to approve the programming floor plans for the 1916 City Hall and Fire EMS Apparatus Edition as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Vance.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Could we,
Item E is consider concepts for the West Main
Mayor,
from 8th to 10th.
excuse me, go ahead. Could we take a 5-minute break?
Sure.
We're approaching 2 hours plus, or at least 5
We have a
minutes.
motion to, take a 5-minute recess. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Did you bring the, executive order?
Yeah, I gave you copies. It should be in all that paper. Looks like that
Oh.
letter,
Okay.
it's the last thing.
All right. Good. Okay, we're back in session. So the next item on our agenda is item E, consider concepts for the West Main from 8th to 10th CCL IP project. Sean, do you want to go over this with us?
Thank you.
And I did print a big copy out for you guys in your copy.
Do I?
I did print a big, 11 by 17 of this concept for you.
The background on the project, the city originally applied for 2 grants. One went from 8th to between 9th and 10th. That was the original steep cliff project. At 10th Street, we applied for an access management grant that did the improvement. We did not receive the access management grant, so then we backed up and basically did a pavement replacement project in that area. And,
Sean, just a minute. Is anyone still listening?
Yeah, there's several people online.
Can somebody tell me if you can hear the discussion?
They're all muted.
Can we call one by name, Kelly, and ask them if they're?
You can ask Mike. Mike's online.
Okay.
Mike, can you hear the conversation?
Kelly, this is Jerry. I can hear it.
Yes, I can hear it.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure.
step closer also. The costs, are summarized on your, agenda item, but it's basically $1 million takeout grant, and with, $764,000 of city funds. The concept drawing, I believe you all have a copy of that, and it's also on the screen. It's basically replacing the pavement, the curb and gutter, and the sidewalks except for near Walgreens, which has a fairly new and compliant sidewalk, at least a portion of it. The one item I do want to point out on 9th Street at the northeast corner, there's an entrance onto Main Street now that is very steep. There's no way to get an ADA compliant sidewalk through there without eliminating that entrance. So we'll have to have discussions with that property owner, to eliminate that entrance.
Is that the O'Reilly site?
Yes, that is an entrance off Main Street into.
I think with the congestion that close to the intersection and the confusion of coming in and out, that we would want to
Yeah,
close that.
it makes sense for a lot of reasons. They have two entrances very close together. Their parking lot's not even very functional with
No.
that entrance, and it's extremely steep. So we've shown a small retaining wall in that area adjacent to the sidewalk.
And just eliminate that as a entry-exit point
Yes,
for that?
and they would have an entrance on 9th Street into that parking lot.
Okay.
It's really the biggest item to point out here. We've shown replacing storm and sewer at each intersection. This is kind of a concept level drawing, and next week we'll be able to submit, field check drawings, which are about a 30% completion drawing to KDOT for review. They refer to that as field check. The next step would be what they call office check, which is 60% planned, and then it's in the bid letting schedule for KDOT for June right now, next year.
So at the northeast corner of 9th and Main, are we redoing the entrance into O'Reilly's parking lot there also?
Yes, we did, because there's gonna be, retaining wall run right up to that entrance grade-wise, we did shift that entrance being replaced.
Do we have to put a rail on top of the retaining wall also?
I don't know if we've shown one yet or not. I will look. Since it depends on the different change in grade.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't know off the top of my head what that change in grade is. But it's probable, very probable that we would have to put a rail on top of that.
On, 9th Street, southeast, the sidewalk is gone. Is that gonna be part of this project, or, David, do you remember if that was, how that was handled with, the patio came over the old,
Yeah, there is some sidewalk there, that runs
Right.
north and south.
Right now, we're just showing replacing what parallels Main Street. If you want to replace that section, we can add that.
I'm not for sure how, there's nothing, it's grass there now, I'm not for sure what the agreement was with the building owner, and
Do you remember
A temporary use agreement?
that temporary use agreement on that Untitled?
if he replaces the sidewalk that he took out, or no, probably need to look
I'll have to pull that out.
into that.
We can look, and we could, if the city wants the sidewalk there, we could possibly run it immediately adjacent to the curb also as an option. Usually if we do that, a minimum width would be, we recommend is 6 foot, just
Yeah.
more comfortable walking space.
On the sidewalk, when we did the streetscape downtown, the building owner shared
They
the
paid
cost.
25%, and the city paid 75%, and then it was split out over so many years, that that's,
Is that how this would, or since we have a grant, is it,
I mean, it's up to you. We haven't looked at that on this project, but it's something you could do if you wanted to do.
that won't affect your drawings?
No, and the way the quantities are broken out, we could pretty easily determine the cost if the city did want to look into that.
That could be at a later discussion. Okay. Now, this was a full base replacement
Correct,
and concrete.
correct.
Yeah.
Concrete pavement, granular stuff, grade.
Commissioner Eustace, got any questions?
And that goes all the way to the east side of West Main and 8th Street. It goes
Correct,
through that intersection, right?
correct. Starts basically at the end of the radius at 8th Street,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll tie to, at 10th Street to the, what I'm calling the new pavement from the previous West Main
Right.
project.
Okay.
Commissioner Hayes, any questions?
No.
How will ADA parking, are you gonna be able to adjust the grade of the street so that the parking spaces will be truly compliant?
Yes, we will. Those areas.
Okay. Kelly, you got any comments for us?
No.
Okay.
It's gonna be a nice improvement to
Yeah.
kind of finish out the West Main reconstruction,
Yeah.
because it ended at that location, and we've always had problems right there in front of Walgreens. Even after last resurfacing in that area, it did not last very long.
No.
It failed pretty quickly, so getting that, repaired the right way, so that we have a long-term fix, definitely going to be an asset to that infrastructure.
Well, if there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
This is mine.
Yes.
I move to approve the concept drawing for the West Main from 8th to 10th Sea Cliff project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Sean. And you're on the, item F is consider adopting an ordinance amending previous boundary ordinances and establishing legal boundaries for the city of Independence, Kansas.
We did this ordinance a few years ago. We did this ordinance a few years ago, and then there were some errors came up in that boundary description that we corrected. Is it every 2 years?
I thought it was annually, but probably if we make, I need to check on that, probably if we make any changes, because, you know, we don't do annexations every year.
So we corrected the legal description that matches the county boundary.
So it includes both, city proper and the airport city property.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Ususi, any questions?
No, I have none.
Commissioner Hayes?
Kelly, are you, do you agree that these corrections are comprehensive and ready to go?
Yes, as long as it matches what the county has, which is that what they utilize, those are our accurate, boundaries.
Very good. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to adopt an ordinance amending previous boundary ordinances and establishing the legal boundaries.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item H, consider authorizing changes to the 5-year CIP for the Independence Municipal Airport to be submitted to the FAA.
G.
G.
G. Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Item G, consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the city's taxable industrial revenue bond series 2020, Textron Aviation Incorporated, authorizing certain documents and actions in connection with the issuance of the series 2020 bonds. Okay.
I believe we may have some bond attorneys on the line.
Yes, this is Dominic with Gilmore and Bell.
How are you, Dominic?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Do you want
This
to,
evening,
you want to share with the commission what we're considering?
yes, thank you, Mayor. This evening, we have an ordinance to issue not to exceed $800,000 of industrial revenue bonds for the Textron Aviation project. These bonds would be issued under the resolution of intent that the commission adopted in 2013. After the issuance of these bonds, $25,080,000 of authority would remain under that resolution. As in years past, this provides for a sales tax exemption for Textron on the materials that are purchased with IRB proceeds, and also a property tax exemption on the building improvements they make with IRB proceeds. And the bonds would be outstanding for 10 years and would be issued pursuant to the indenture as a supplemental indenture, just as in years past. Happy to entertain any questions that the commission may have on this matter.
Commissioner Hayes?
This is consistent with bonds of this nature that we've done in previous years.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ususi?
I have none, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. If there's no further questions, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the city's taxable industrial revenue bond series 2020, Textron Aviation Incorporated, authorizing certain documents and actions in connection with the issuance of the Series 2020 bonds.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, item H, consider authorizing changes to the 5-year CIP for the Independence Municipal Airport to be submitted to the FAA. David?
Mayor, we've been recently working with the FAA and Lochner, and after some evaluations, have made some changes that, need to the FAA. We identify those changes as rehabilitation of taxiway D, removing taxiway D, and I think I skipped the first one, and the rehabilitation and remarking of the terminal apron. And we were asking for the authority to submit this to the FAA for a 5-year CIP.
Okay. Commissioner Hayes, do you have any questions?
I can't see the values, project costs for the City of Independence for that 5-year period. Is that what's listed on the bottom of the document there?
You have the total project cost estimates.
Total project cost estimate. Is that the city's cost?
It's a 10% match. It's a 90-10 grant program with the FAA.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
And so it's a total of 700 and, it looks like the city share is $73,500 of the $735,000, total on project.
Okay, thank you. That's my question. I'm good.
Commissioner Yususi, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
And the reason for removing taxiway B was
Lochner evaluation, the base is so gone, top, so removing versus, replacement, really wasn't any substantial savings, but it's kind of a danger because where our hangars are, a plane could accidentally come out and go right out onto the runway instead of taxiing down appropriately, and so they're just, the FAA agreed, that it's probably best interest of the airport to take that out.
okay. So there were sound reasons to
Yeah.
remove it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions, Commissioners?
I'm good.
I'm good.
If there are no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to authorize submittal of the updated Independence Municipal Airport 5-year CIP to the FAA.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item I, consider authorizing the city manager to sign an engagement letter with Tanner LLC for facilitation of the January 2021 Annual City Commission City Staff Planning Retreat.
Mayor, the city commission has had this planning retreat for the last few years. It's been facilitated by, Tanner LLC, who also, developed our strategic plan. And Mackie Smith, who helped us last year, is available. That's your third Wednesday, 9 a.m., work session meeting date, and that would kick off the budget for the 2022 year process.
Okay. Commissioner Hayes, any questions?
No.
Commissioner Yususi?
On the cost, that was, $2,500 plus, other expenses not to exceed $700, is that right?
Yeah, and that's travel.
Travel
Out-of-pocket,
expenses and
that
out of
kind of
pocket,
thing.
yeah. Okay, no, that, I just wanted to clarify that. No, I'm good.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then I will call for a motion.
I move to authorize the city manager to sign an agreement letter with Tanner LLC for facilitation of the January 2020 annual city commission. Is that 21? It should say 21 on my document. Is that, sorry about that. For the January 2021 annual city commission / city staff planning retreat.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item J, consider a resolution rescinding Resolution 2020-079 declaring a water emergency. Terry? Wake up.
Sorry, I was asleep. With recent rains, notification from the state, actual flow, they converted it, water, and considered emergency at this time. But I think it'll last for the first year, and maybe back in the same situation again.
So the state could send us an order again to declare emergency.
They, with the natural flow season, they'll send us an order telling us to
Okay.
stop.
So we're behind on our annual rainfall. Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Yususi, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you, Mayor.
Hayes?
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no more questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt Resolution 2020-080, rescinding Resolution 2020-079, declaring a water emergency.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, Mayor, can I back up here just a moment? And it has to do with a motion that I made that wasn't very clear, and I need to clarify that. It's going back to item C, which was the recommendation for, to propose a grant incentive to Labette Health. And I didn't make that statement very clear, so I'd like to restate that
Okay.
for the record, so we can go through that process again. Okay, so, if this is not right, stop me. You'll probably stop me. So, I move to approve the proposed grant incentive to Labette Health and changing from $60,000 each year over a 10-year period to $100,000 each year over a 10-year period. And it is a grant incentive for Labette Health, and for the city attorney to draft an agreement for the grant.
Okay. So that's,
Is that clear?
Previously, he said not to exceed 1 million, which doesn't give you a definite amount,
right,
and so we just needed to clarify that.
okay. And should that have a vote again?
I think you should vote again on it,
And we have that motion.
so it's clear.
Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Now we are at item 6, reports. A is the city board minutes. Any questions or comments regarding the plumbing and electrical board minutes?
I have none.
I'm good.
Item B is projects update by Trend Systems.
Quick update on the projects we're working on.
I can't hear real very good.
Apply for a block grant, for Basin 5 and for Phase 2 I&I abatement. The block grant is for, 1.4. The whole project's 1.4 million, 700,000 of it is a block grant, 700,000 would be the loan money. We expect to hear about that in the spring. I don't have an exact date. Typically it's March, April timeframe. Both of those, Basin 5, Phase 2, and the Lakeview Lift Station, the plans are prepared and they're ready to bid as soon as we hear if we have received the block grant. Other projects that are identified that the city has examined is the Wall Lift Station. That has a price tag of $690,000. That would be, the plan is to utilize KDHE loan money for that project. There's another, around $1 million. It's really not identified for a specific project, but it's available for I&I abatement or bypass reduction project in that total of 3.1. The city did happen to receive the block grant. There's another $700,000 available also in that original $3.1 million. Right now identified. The next project, Main Street, Peter Pan C-Clip, that is the mill and overlay at the intersection. We received an email from the contractor, Heckert Construction, requesting that the project be delayed till spring. Heckert had some difficulties getting their milling company, which is Dustral, in for a variety of reasons. They listed several in their email. One of them was project delays due to COVID. It made them stay on other projects longer. Just in discussions with city staff and the time of year, we really don't want them to come in and start milling and then not be able to complete the project. So we are, especially around the Walmart intersection, so we are going to concur with their recommendation or their request to delay it until spring. We did check with KDOT to make sure that did not jeopardize the city's grant money, and it does not.
Don't asphalt plants usually shut down sometime
Yeah,
as the weather starts dropping?
It is. It's temperature related.
Yeah.
And usually the latest is December 15th, and then they'll open back up certainly by March 15th. So I would think the latest would be March 15th. Maple Street cost share project. We're working on design. That is a $2.6 million project. $1.6 million is KDOT, with the remainder city. That is slated to bid in August of next year. There's really not because the cost share is a little different program, you don't go through the steps of like field check, office check, like we talked about earlier, but at some point, probably after the first of the year, we'll bring 30% plans for the city to look at. Whiskey Creek, we assisted with a preliminary engineering report on the EDA grant application near 21st and Sycamore. That has been submitted, is my understanding. The grant app. The grant app for Whiskey Creek, that has been submitted.
I have not submitted it. I am reviewing it now, and I've requested, a couple more letters of support from business owners.
Okay. And that is the removal of the dilapidated, buried storm sewer near 21st and Sycamore, and replacing that with the channel. ADA Phase 4, Graham Construction is finishing work at DFW. Then next week they'll move back to Cottonwood to finish the ADA work related to the city's overlay project. The fire station entrance, we had a on-site reconstruction meeting today. They're going to begin their removals tomorrow, and then hopefully for the first section in next week. The Westminster sewer, we're doing a plan, assisting the city with a plan to change those, change houses over from the private sewer to new, recently constructed public sewer. We're finishing up those plans and planning with Terry next week to review those in that repackage. That's all I have, Kelly, or any others for an update.
No, thank you, Donna.
Glad to answer any questions.
Commissioner Susi, do you have any questions?
Not right off the bat. I was writing as fast as I could.
I'll, and Kelly asked me to submit a summary in writing for next commission meeting.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, that's excellent.
Do you have any
Okay.
questions? Good, okay.
Waiting on the summary.
Yeah, it would be handy to have a list of projects that,
We tried to do it for this time, but
Yeah, I got it.
COVID got in the way.
that's,
Understand.
that's, is that like the dog ate my homework?
Kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah. What are we gonna do when COVID's gone? Okay,
Figured out.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Next item on the agenda is city manager comments.
Mayor, the governor has, an executive order that was asked that you have copies of regarding wearing masks. And I can let David go over the protocol on what that means for us.
Well, visiting, just to give you guys a brief update, visiting with the emergency manager today, the city continues to have pretty, between 100 and 120 active cases every week. That number does fluctuate up, but every Friday, usually enough drop off from their quarantine or their isolation, so we're staying constant at 100 to 120. Currently in southeast Kansas, which would be the 8-county area, there are 26 COVID patients hospitalized, not necessarily in the southeast Kansas hospitals, but they are somewhere hospitalized. They are residents in southeast Kansas that are in the hospital with COVID, 26 of them. Those are just some of the statistics. It'll be Tuesday before the county makes any decision as to whether they will opt out, go along with the governor, or do their own ordinance. Rick did not have any idea what they were going to do at this point, and kind of where we're at. I mean, if you guys have questions, Jeff here as far as what the governor's put out, and
Jeff prepared 2 resolutions if you wanted as a city to go ahead and, Jeff, you want to explain that? I highlighted the difference between the 2, just one word.
I thought, I talked to Dave Kelly and Jeff this afternoon about the governor's executive orders, and, I felt that, you know, with the situation that we have, that we shouldn't just wait for somebody else, wait for the county to make a decision, and us, that, you know, we need to, take the information, and we as commissioners for independence need to make a decision and show our either support for the governor and the mandate for masks or not. And I think it's a serious enough point that we have to do something. And that's why I had asked, in our conversation, Jeff, to prepare, 2 ordinances, or 2 resolutions as a first step, that we would, choose in the resolution to support the governor's executive order and request that the citizens of Independence comply with that request also. And felt it's a first step. If you've read the executive order, it's not out of line, but it is a good first step that we have to move in that direction. So Jeff, would you want to explain the two resolutions that you prepared?
Well, the executive order, there's 3 pages of how it applies, what it applies to, exceptions to it. And on fairly short notice, discussion with city staff and the mayor was that possibly the commission would decide to have a show of support the resolution and encourage citizens to comply. And then there was discussion about having businesses post a notice about wearing masks before you enter your business. And then there were 2 options there: recommend that they do it or require that they do it. It might be kind of a moot point because this is a resolution. Even if you're required to do it, it's kind of toothless. The thought was, no matter which way you went on that, you may decide not to do a resolution, or just recommend that they post it, or require that they post it. Come back to it at an appropriate time. And the next step, if you want to get tougher, would be a citywide ordinance. Cities can adopt mask ordinances, which I think Parsons is the closest city down here that has adopted it. You've probably heard pros and cons about Parsons. Pros and cons, but the only way you can enforce is really by adopting your own ordinance, and that way you have control over it. Otherwise, you're tied to the county health officials, the county attorney to enforce it. And that's county-wide, which has more cities than the state. I'm not telling you what to do, I'm recommending, but those are kind of your options.
I thought with the request that the businesses post a sign, it would make people more aware at the entrance and just reinforce what we've done. Commissioner Ususi, comments, questions?
Well, I'm not going to name any businesses in particular, but it's unfortunately it's divided. We've sat here, Commissioner Hayes has, I have, Mayor Kaflish has. We've asked people to, step up and do the right thing. Wear a mask. Wear a mask when you go into public places. Keep your social distancing. Do all the correct things to help slow the spread of this. I've been in places where they posted a sign and where they've handed out masks, and people will either refuse them or they'll take them, and as soon as they enter the store, they take them off. I've seen all different kinds of actions by all different kinds of people. There's got to be something happen that continues to reinforce and bring it to everybody's attention. Beforehand it was, you would hear about people that had it and you didn't know anyone in particular, but lately it seems like we all know people that have it, that have tested positive, so it's getting closer to home. We have to do something, and it's such a simple process. I thought of something earlier today, and I'm going to ramble on, and that's me, so just bear with me. If you were going into to see a new to a maternity ward, if you were able to go in and let's say your grandchild or your niece or your nephew or whoever it was, they had some compromised health issues, and they said, well, you can go in and see your grandchild or your nephew or niece, but we're gonna ask you that you need to sanitize, you need to put on a mask and gloves for the protection of the child. Nobody would hesitate. If I'm allowed to go in and just look, I would be willing to do that because I want to protect someone so young that has some issues. Nobody would have a qualm about that. They wouldn't argue that. So why is it that we can't take that step and project that out to show that kindness to other people in the community? I don't get it. I don't understand that part. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
Commissioner Hayes?
Seems like we're gonna do this next time anyway, if we don't do it this time, because the governor's gonna say it. We're waiting on the county to say it. Wait on the, if we could make ours contingent upon whether the county does it or not, but we're gonna do it anyway, in my mind. I'm ready to vote.
Yeah. That's kind of what I thought of, why wait? It needs to be done. We don't need to wait on someone else. The thing that I've seen with looking at the mask protects you from spreading the virus. And when you look at generally, if you test positive, they go back 2 days, 48 hours, and say you've been contagious, and they look at the people within that time frame. But that's really not realistic, because COVID copies allergies, it copies strep throat, it copies the flu. So really, when you get tested, you've already been contagious and been spreading the virus to others. So you wear the mask to stop the spread to someone else. Well, who is that? My granddaughter has COVID. She tested positive, but the symptoms aren't there. My daughter's COVID positive. She was fatigued, sore throat, really tired. But there's others that are 25 years old that catch COVID, they're passing away. So, who are you wearing the mask for? Not yourself, but to protect spreading during that untimed thing. Because if you wait to put your mask on when you feel bad, you've already been spreading the virus. Now, who did you spread it to? To somebody that their health is compromised, they're going to pass away? To your grandchild, to my grandchild? Am I going to spread it to your parents, your children? So that's why it's important that we take the governor's executive order serious, that we on our own put the mask on, because one thing I don't want to do is sit here and pass an ordinance saying that you will wear a mask or you will be fined. And that's the next step. If we don't get cooperation and put masks on to cut the spread and watch the gatherings, stay isolated, who you're with, everyone mask up, then it's going to come to us that we're going to have to address an ordinance that says that if you're caught outside within a business or you're at work without a mask, that you can be fined. And each time it progresses up. So, we've talked about this numerous times, and I've been opposed, because when that happens, there's got to be other things too. We got to restrict gatherings. And it's all coming down to our decisions. Do we want to wear a mask to protect each other? Because if I wear a mask to protect myself, it's not working, because I'm not contagious now. If you're contagious, I've got a mask on, 70% chance I can get COVID. you have a mask on, you're contagious, and I don't, it drops to 15%. If we're both wearing masks, it drops to 1.5%. So why don't we want to wear masks? So I think, tonight I'll ask the commission for a motion concerning the resolution to recommend that the businesses post signs at their entrances, and let's proceed and see. Let's not wait on others to make a decision for us. Let's make a decision ourselves.
I so move.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Kelly, anything?
Yes, I just wanted to report to you that, normally our city awards banquet was scheduled, for December 11th. With the COVID situation, obviously, we can't get together like we did last year. So we're looking at some alternatives. So, between, asking for, some opinions from our employees, and also I've got some from the commissioners. What we came up with was, on December 11th, which is when we would have had our luncheon, we, would like to deliver, boxed lunches to each of the employees, and the department heads will take care of arranging for that. We'll have, a maximum dollar amount, so we keep it within, budget. And we'd like to honor the awards recipients at the December 10th meeting that are getting their years of service awards and are, retirees. And, include information about the honorees in the January city newsletter, and try to reschedule last year we did a Taste of Independence with various restaurants, and we'd like to try to reschedule that in the spring, COVID, permitting. And the boxed lunches will be from different restaurants as well, depending on, what that department chooses that they want.
Sounds good.
So we're trying to do it in a safe manner while still honoring those employees and still showing our appreciation to our employees. And the annual gift certificates that we give will be on your next agenda on that December 10th under the consent for the same amount as last year. So
Okay.
just letting you know that's coming up.
That's good.
So does anybody have any questions or other suggestions?
No, that sounds wonderful.
Sounds good, Kelly. Thank
All
you.
right, thank
Good.
you.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Next item is commissioner comments. Commissioner Hayes.
Well, I've said a lot this evening, so I'll keep my comments short. But I appreciate the work of the Economic Development Advisory Board. That group of citizens did spend a significant amount of time preparing for this meeting, and I just wanted to reinforce that they did in fact develop what I asked them to develop in a very conscientious way, and that it is a just I feel like I need to reach out to them in some way to tell them that job well done. So enough said. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Eustace.
Dean, I agree with your statement. They spent a lot of hours and a lot of time on this, giving us the information that we needed. So other than that, I've said plenty, so I'm going to stop there.
Okay. And I have no comments. Public concerns. Does anyone in the public like to address the commission? No? That brings us to adjournment. And with that, I make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.